Welcome to the Sci-Fi Evolution channel. You know what? I thought I had seen everything in my 3 centuries as a professor at the most prestigious academy of the Galactic Educational Council. But let me tell you, that old Zenorian was wrong. The Space Limit Academy, located on the crystalline cliffs of the most civilized planet in the galaxy, is such an advanced institution that it has floating libraries, gravity-defying lecture halls, and coffee machines capable of brewing drinks for 73 different types. Not to mention students from all corners of the known cosmos. They are all here to receive the best education the galaxy has to offer. So naturally, when I received the news that we would be accepting an exchange student from some forgotten rock called Terra, I wasn't thrilled. The documents classified them as a newly associated civilization with primitive technology and limited space travel capabilities. Great, just fine. Another retarded savage who needs to be cared for. At the introductory galactic history course, the transport shuttle arrived on Wednesday morning. A creature that could only be described as unremarkable walked out of the shuttle. Lyra Skywalker was the person who came out. She was red-haired, of medium height, and her brown hair was pulled back into a practical hairstyle. She was wearing simple cloth clothes. She looked around the landing platform with her small dark eyes, taking in the floating spires and streams of energy. She seemed to be familiar with the surroundings, as if she was impressed but not entirely surprised. Professor Vortex introduced herself with a distinctive accent, stretching the vowels and staccato pronouncing the consonants. "I'm Lyra," she said. "Thank you for welcoming me to your academy." I smiled at her professionally, the way I smile at sponsors, children, and other necessary inconveniences. "Welcome to Space Limit Academy, Miss Skywalker. I hope your journey wasn't too difficult for someone with your technological limitations." She just smiled back. I smiled. "Oh, don't worry, Professor. I've had worse. I once got stuck in a capsule for 6 cycles during an energy failure evacuation. It was nothing compared to that. I didn't even know what a capsule or an energy glitch was, but I nodded anyway. It was just a matter of transportation and natural disasters, no doubt." As we walked through the main corridors of the academy, Lyra continued to ask strange questions. "It's not about our advanced technology or architecture, you know." No, she wanted to know about emergency evacuation procedures. "So, what's the evacuation plan if something goes wrong? What is it?" she asked, studying the floating platforms with interest. "Well," I replied, "we have the most sophisticated security systems in the galaxy. Force fields, emergency teleportation, automated medical care, right? But what if these systems fail? What's the backup plan?" I asked, blinking all 4 eyes. "Miss Skywalker, our systems are reliable. Don't worry. This is the Space Limit Academy, not some kind of backward institution." "Of course," she interrupted, waving her hand. "But hypothetically speaking, what would we do if, for example, the power went out and the teleporters stopped functioning?" "It's just not feasible," I stuttered. "Huh?" She made an indeterminate sound. "At home, we always have at least 3 backup plans, you know, in case the jumping beasts come back to our walls." The other students we met along the way, a young crystallite from the Andromeda sector, a promising student, and 2 exchange students from the real system, all stopped and stared at her. "Jumping beasts?" Zara, the crystallite, asked, her voice ringing like wind chimes. "Oh yes," Lyra said casually, adjusting the strap of her bag. "Nasty little creatures. They look like koalas, but they jump out of the trees and attack you if you are not careful. Last year, we lost 3 neighbors to them, 2 neighbors and Mrs. Henderson's cat." Lyra looked genuinely puzzled. "Professor, I have the scars to prove it," she said, pointing to the mark on her arm. I quickly intervened. "There's no need for that," I said, guiding the group toward the dorms. "Human folklore is really intriguing, I assure you." But let's take care of your accommodation first, right? As we traveled, I decided to explore the cultural customs of Terra. It was obvious that these people had created an elaborate of mythology to make sense of their primitive lives. Jumping beasts indeed. What will they come up with next? I was thinking, if only I had known then what I know now. If only I had been more attentive. What Lyra Skywalker was trying to convey to us. But, as they say, everyone is strong in hindsight. And let me tell you, I was going to make it very clear how wrong I was about everything. The next morning, I walked into my advanced xenobiology class feeling quite satisfied. The topic for today was dangerous predators all over the galaxy. It was one of my favorite lectures. There is nothing better than seeing young minds recoil in horror from the most terrifying creatures in the universe. Today, I started the lesson by effectively activating the holographic display. We will study the top predators that shaped the evolutionary development throughout the known cosmos. The first image that appeared was that of a towering, six-legged nightmare from the Vega system. It was a vegan bone crusher, 12 feet tall, with jaws capable of biting through titanium alloy. This magnificent beast has claimed more than 300 lives in the last century alone. A collective sigh echoed through the classroom. I loved those moments. Then I continued, moving on to the next hologram. We have a majestic phantom stalker, invisible to most detection systems. It hunts by tracking the electrical impulses emitted by its prey's nervous system. Once he captures the target, he becomes unstoppable. More sounds of fear from my students. Even Lyra seemed to be paying attention, even though she had a strange expression on her face, as if she was trying not to laugh. Well, that's it, I said, puffing out my chest. This is the epitome of predatory evolution, the most formidable creatures in the known universe. Each of them is an ideal killing machine, honed by millions of years of evolution. Lyra politely raised her hand. Professor, would you like to tell us about some of the pets we keep at home? Pets? I blinked slowly. Yes, Miss Skywalker, that would be informative. Although I doubt that Terra's pets would be appropriate for discussing the top predators in the galaxy. They're not domesticated, Lyra said, standing up with the same casual confidence she displayed the day before. They don't look like the animals you might find in your area. You know, the usual suspects you see in Australian backyards. She tapped her wrist device, and a holographic image appeared. The whole class leaned forward, expecting to see a fluffy, harmless creature. Instead, they saw something that caused half of the students to immediately push back their chairs. This little beauty, Lyra said cheerfully, is the Sydney funnel-shaped spider. Now I know what you're thinking, it's not that big. She held up her thumb and forefinger, showing a gap of about 2 inches. But don't let the size fool you, she continued. These creatures have enough venom to kill a fully grown human in about 15 minutes. Lyra went on to clarify that the spiders are hostile and will chase you if you disturb them. Zara the Crystallite made a sound like breaking glass. He relentlessly pursues his prey. And that's what's interesting. Their fangs are so powerful that they can pierce their nails. Sometimes they get tangled in shoes and bite hard until they die. These determined little creatures. I felt my scales itch. Miss Skywalker, you're exaggerating for dramatic effect, of course. Oh, don't worry, Professor. I have proof. Lyra's projection switched to what looked like a news report. It was from last month. A local resident found one in his sock drawer. He had to burn down the whole house. Well, not literally, but you get the idea. There was silence in the classroom. Even I felt a little sick. Now this is a real revelation. Lyra continued, completely oblivious to the growing horror around her. A box jellyfish, virtually invisible in the water, with tentacles up to 10 feet long and enough venom to kill 60 adult humans. We call them sea wasps because they are as friendly as they sound. The projection showed a transparent, floating nightmare that was moving through tropical waters. One of the students, Lyra, even fainted. The most interesting thing is that the pain from their bite is so intense that victims often go into shock and drown even before the venom begins to act. But at least it's fast, right? My throat is dry. Miss Skywalker, these creatures really do exist in our oceans. Oh, really? The bathing season is always an adventure. But that's not all. She switched to another image. This little guy is my personal favorite. The blue-ringed octopus is the size of a golf ball, but it carries enough venom to kill 26 adults. And the worst part is that there is no antidote. In the projection, the octopus looked almost beautiful, its skin pulsing with electric blue rings, until you realize that these rings are a warning sign. The poison causes complete paralysis. Lyra explained the situation matter-of-factly. You are fully aware of everything that is happening, but you cannot move or speak. It's the perfect murder weapon. Come to think of it. By this point, half of the class was pale or had their heads between their knees. The other half looked at Lyra as if she had just confessed to being a serial killer. Miss Skywalker, I managed to say, how do your people survive on this planet? Lyra shrugged her shoulders. You learn to be careful, check your surroundings, and never swim alone. Besides, most of the creatures here are harmless. I mean, most of them are harmless. They're just friendly creatures around Sydney. You should see what we have in the hinterland. The silence that followed was so complete that you could hear a pin drop. If only someone was brave enough to move, of course. I looked at my holographic display of the most dangerous predators in the galaxy and felt a growing sense of unease, realizing that perhaps I had gone too far. I taught this lesson incorrectly. Miss Skywalker, I said slowly, how many of these creatures live near your house? Lyra perked up. Oh, a lot. These are just the ones that I can remember offhand. Do you want to see snakes? 2 days later, I was still having nightmares about blue-ringed octopuses. But being a dedicated teacher, I continued my lessons. Today's lesson on galactic exploration was supposed to be a safe topic dedicated to the conditions of habitable worlds and the development of civilization. As we all know, I tried to feign the confidence I no longer felt. Advanced civilizations can only thrive on planets with stable environments. Unpredictable weather conditions, unstable geological activity, and frequent natural disasters hinder technological progress. I pointed at the star chart behind me. Take, for example, the cosmic limit. Our climate remains constant, changing by no more than 5 degrees throughout the year. Our worst natural disasters are. In the annals of history, there was a light rain that lasted for 3 days. This weather pattern allowed our ancestors to focus on scientific progress rather than just survival. The class nodded in agreement. Even Lyra seemed to be listening intently, although she had the same strange expression on her face as yesterday, as if she was holding back some kind of inner turmoil. Now, I continued, can someone give me an example of how environmental stability contributes to the development of civilization? Several hands went up, but Lyra's voice cut through the air before I could summon anyone else. Actually, Professor, can I use my home continent as an example? Every instinct inside me said no, but academic curiosity and, let's be honest, an unhealthy fascination with the horror Lyra was about to reveal got the better of her. Very well, Miss Skywalker. Please tell us about your stable environment. Lyra stood up and activated her holographic display. The image showed a vast expanse of land, a mixture of brown and green shades, seemingly endless. This is Australia, she said. I know what you're thinking. It looks peaceful from above, doesn't it? Let me tell you about our summer weather conditions, Lyra continued. The first image made my blood run cold. It depicted a massive spiral of flame sweeping across the landscape like a fiery tornado. "These are what we call fire tornadoes," she explained casually. "They occur during the wildfire season, which is about half the year. Sometimes they become so powerful that they create their own weather systems. Quite impressive, actually." One of the outstanding female students raised a trembling hand. "Skywalker," she asked, "how do your people survive in such conditions?" Lyra chuckled. "Oh, you're just learning to recognize the signs," she said. "When the sky turns fiery and the birds take off, it's time to grab a refreshing drink and wait it out. In the face of a tornado, you must run to safety." The projection was replaced by a scene resembling a molten road surface. And this is what happens when the temperature reaches 48 degrees Celsius. Roads literally melt, sometimes cars get stuck, and you have to abandon your transport. But at least you know it's going to be a real summer. I felt my scale start to fall off due to stress at 48 degrees. This is when the boiling point of the water is approaching. Yes, it gets hot, but it's nothing compared to the rainy season. Lyra's projection showed a scene that could only be described as an inland sea where there should have been land. This is Queensland during the flood season. Water can cover territories larger than most planets, engulfing entire cities for months on end. There was silence in the classroom, except for the sound of several students breathing heavily. "Now the most interesting thing," Lyra continued with the same cheerful tone, "is when cyclones decide to join the party, Category 5 storms with winds that can reach dangerous levels. I was literally moving houses. We named them after old friends, Cyclone Tracy and Cyclone Yasi. A really friendly company." I frantically clicked on my tablet, trying to access the files of the Terra ecological classification. Surely our databases have missed something. Surely no civilized species could survive in such conditions. "Miss Skywalker," I stuttered, "how are your people reacting to these catastrophic events?" Lyra shrugged her shoulders. "We react to everything the same way. We cook another shrimp on the barbecue and continue to live. Although, technically, we call them shrimp. Barbecue shrimp is what we tell tourists." "Do you cook during natural disasters?" I asked. "Really? What else can you do? Sit and worry? Life is too short for that. In addition, the electricity is usually turned off, so you can light a gas grill and get the most out of it." The device in my hand displayed the current ecological classification of Terra. My eyes widened as I read the information. The variability of the weather, frequent natural disasters, and hostile wildlife are all factors that make your planet uninhabitable, Miss Skywalker. According to our databases, your planet is classified that way. I said slowly, trying to explain the situation to Lyra. She laughed. She really laughed. "Yes, that sounds quite plausible," she replied. "But I think whoever wrote this report has never tasted our meat pies. They would be worth risking for them in extreme weather." We discussed how people on Terra cope with such circumstances by building stronger structures, anticipating future events, and learning to find humor in the absurdity of life. She stressed that there is no point in worrying about things that are beyond our control. Instead, we should focus on taking on the challenges that make life so exciting. She switched to another image on her screen, showing people grilling during wildfire season. "This was filmed during the last major fire," she said, pointing to her Uncle Bob flipping burgers while smoke billowed in the background. "He said it was worth it, even if half the country was burning." I stared at the image in complete disbelief. These people were grilling during an environmental disaster, and they seemed happy. "Oh, and it's just summer," Lyra added with a disconcertingly casual tone. "The real fun begins in winter." The silence was broken only by the quiet crying of one of the students. I looked at my carefully prepared lecture on a stable environment and the progress of civilization, then at the image of people happily roasting meat while their world burned around them. Perhaps it's time to review my curriculum. As the cultural exchange day approached, I seriously considered early retirement. But duty called, and besides, how much worse could things get? Famous last words. An amazing sight of galactic diversity unfolded in the Great Hall of the Academy, with floating silk banners from the Andromeda Collective. Overhead, crystal wind chimes played mesmerizing, beautiful melodies from the Vega system. The air itself shimmered with holographic art installations that reacted to the emotions of the audience. "Greetings, students and faculty," said Dean Maximilian Korat, his voice echoing through the hall. "Today we celebrate our rich heritage, which makes our intergalactic community so diverse." The presentation started gracefully. The crystal delegation performed a subtle dance, creating a rainbow on the ceiling. Wartak students demonstrated their traditional memory weaving by creating intricate mental tapestries spanning centuries. Even the notorious Rial contingent shared their harmonic mathematical equations, which somehow brought a sense of calm to the room. Each presentation was more refined than the previous one. The last thing you would expect to find in ancient civilizations is Australian hospitality. This is exactly what Lyra brought to the presentation. She was full of energy as she began unpacking her bag, filled with items that were part of her cultural traditions. "When guests come to us, we always serve them food," she clarified. "It's just a matter of being polite, you know?" I felt a chill run down my spine, anticipating what was about to happen. Lyra held up a jar with a bright yellow label. "This is Vegemite. It is a national treasure in Australia. Spread it on toast for a proper breakfast." She opened the jar, and a distinctive smell filled the air. The speaker described the aroma of fermented algae, which had been left in a sports sock for several months, as strong. He hit the audience like a physical force. Lyra continued, seemingly unaware that half the crowd was covering their noses. "I know what you're thinking. It has a strong smell," she said. "That's because it's high quality." She imagined what looked like slices of bread, and began to spread a dark, viscous substance on them. The smell increased exponentially. She asked if anyone would like to try it. The reaction was swift and unanimous. The students started to retreat, then quickly moved towards the exits, and finally they started running. Within a minute, everyone was gone except Lyra, me, and 3 security personnel who were too shocked to move. "But I brought a milder version," Lyra shouted after the departing crowd, with sincere bewilderment on her face. "Wait until you try Bovril." I approached her cautiously, my breathing apparatus working at full power to filter out the poisonous miasma. "Miss Skywalker, what is this substance? Is it Vegemite?" "Oh, it's just yeast extract. You know, the remnants of brewing mixed with salt and vitamins add character. My mother always said, 'Do you eat brewing waste?' Absolutely. Although, I think it's an acquired taste. Here, try it." She handed me a piece of soiled bread. I jumped back so fast that I almost tripped. "Maybe we can move on to another aspect of your culture?" "Of course, Professor. How about I show you some of our traditional games?" Lyra activated her holographic display, and suddenly the room was filled with images of what could only be described as ritualized violence. "It's rugby," she explained cheerfully when the game appeared on the screen. The projection depicted groups of people colliding with each other, clearly intending to cause physical harm. The goal is to move the ball to the opposite side of the field. It seems like a simple task. I watched in horror as man after man was attacked, crushed, and mistreated. "Oh, Miss Skywalker, it looks like a battlefield. However, this is just a friendly game. If you want to see something really intense, you should watch the Australian Football League." The projection switched to a more chaotic scene where people were throwing themselves into the air and colliding with each other. AFL players look like flying tanks. Fascinating how they intentionally injure each other for entertainment. Indeed, it's not a real sport if no one is injured. It develops character and teaches resilience after a fall. Moreover, Crowds love a good grip. The projection showed people cheering wildly for their teammates. The creatures were methodically exterminated on the playing field. "Miss Skywalker," I said, "do you realize that most civilized beings consider violence undesirable?" Lyra looked genuinely puzzled. "But this is not violence, Professor. This is sport. There are rules, and no bites, no eye gouging, no attempts to permanently harm an opponent. It's very civilized, isn't it? No eye gouging is considered civilized? Well, yes, we have to draw the line somewhere." At that moment, my ancient survival instinct finally kicked in. The same instinct that helped my ancestors survive the great predatory wars in the Zenuran home system. The one that screamed, "Danger, supreme predator, run now." For the first time in my academic career, I seriously considered launching emergency evacuation protocols for the Academy. "Miss Skywalker," I managed to say, "perhaps we should continue this discussion." "Of course, Professor. I have something else to show you. Wait until you hear about our bear hunting methods," Lyra said, her face lighting up. She was already halfway to the exit when she finished speaking. An emergency faculty meeting was scheduled for 8 a.m. the next morning. Dean Korat addressed the assembled professors, his face serious. "We need to discuss a human problem," he announced, his tentacles twitching with barely contained anxiety. I spent the whole night researching, and what I discovered shocked me to the core. "Dean," I said, standing up, my tablet shaking in my hands, "I've looked at the actual planetary classification of Terra. According to the Galactic Survey Corps, Terra is not just a hostile planet, but a world of death, level 12. I paused to reflect on the consequences. Our homeworld, Zenata Prime, is a level 1 paradise by comparison. There was a terrifying silence in the room. Then you learn how to make the most of your situation. Why not enjoy the little things while you can? The image changed, showing how people enjoy life despite the dangers they face. And finally, you learn to appreciate the simple things in life. After all, what's the point of worrying about the future when you can't control it? The projection now showed how people were enjoying life despite the dangers they faced. So, when everything around you is trying to kill you, you develop several survival mechanisms, she concluded. You learn to laugh at danger, make the most of your situation, and appreciate the simple things in life. And that's why we call our continent a happy country. Life is too short, and if you worry all the time, what's the point? The spider is coming for you, so why not leave with a smile? She changed the image. People were quietly evacuating during what looked like a massive flood. Many of them actually waved the camera. Secondly, you help your neighbors when everyone is facing equally unbearable difficulties. You look out for each other. It's just common sense. The final image showed a group of people working together to recover from what looked like a cyclone that destroyed their city. And finally, you never give up, because tomorrow may be the day when you finally overcome all difficulties. The room was quiet. These were not actions of a primitive kind. They were the most advanced survival experts any of us had ever encountered. That's why we call it the Lucky Nation, concluded Lyra. Not because we're lucky to live there, but because living there has made us lucky enough to handle whatever the universe throws at us. She reached into her bag. And then I took out some packages. I've brought some parting gifts for everyone. Tim Tams are for cookie lovers, don't worry. They are completely safe. I also brought some travel brochures in case anyone wants to visit Australia. The brochures say, "Come and say hello" below in small print. Warning that they may contain dangerous wildlife, extreme weather conditions, and aggressive locals. Visit at your own risk. "Oh, and before I forget," Lyra mentioned casually, "I'm actually from Brisbane, which is considered the safest part of Australia." After a moment of silence, Lyra left, humming a tune about dancing with Matilda. When I realized the truth, I realized that people weren't primitive at all. We were the most advanced species in the universe, evolving in a different direction than the rest. While we've been developing technologies to make life easier, humans have developed something much more valuable: the ability to adapt and thrive in any situation. The unattainable seemed within reach, and this realization filled me with horror as I scanned the guidebook.